I grew up in the truth, and my parents grew up in the truth. I'm not sure about my grandparents. If they joined when they were kids. With my great grandparents, I'm just not sure. But um, so, of course, going to meetings and special meetings and gospel meetings and conventions was all a really big part of my life. Um, I remember our family would always go to gospel meeting early, usually about a half an hour early, and we would help set up chairs, help get ready for gospel meeting. And I remember uh, early on, when I was pretty little, I was in charge of setting up the microphone and lugging that big old suitcase and setting up the mic and the speaker system and stuff. Um, I feel like we had our more than our fair share of the workers over. Um, it seems like we had them over quite often, and I always enjoyed that growing up. Playing games, and I remember one time we made a big cardboard castle, and but the workers were always a big part of our childhood growing up. Um, so when I was 8 years old, at Hector Convention in Minnesota, I professed. Um, I don't know if I really knew what I was doing. I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. Um, so at 8, I professed. I remember after meeting, I was like the first one out of the meeting shed, ran and got some hot cocoa, and I set it down on my bunk and went and took a shower, and then I went to bed. And I felt like that was the first, like that's what I was supposed to do. That was the first step of the rest of my life was to profess. And I felt like I couldn't wait. Like I had to wait until I was old enough to do that. Um, but a few years later, I don't know if I was 12 or 13 or something. I remember coming back from visiting my grandma in the nursing home with my mom, and I asked her if I was too young to be baptized. Of course, that was the next step, and so um, then 12 or 13, I was baptized again up by Hector. And after that, I think when I was about 15, my parents had the opportunity to move on to convention grounds. And it was kind of always my dad's dream to do that. And so we moved out there and out to South Dakota and moved onto the convention grounds. And I remember like during preps and, we'd always have lots of workers over, work days and different things like that. And so I got to know a lot of different people when we moved, a lot of different workers and people, and had great memories of getting ready for convention and all the projects we did around the place and stuff like that. In high school, um, got a couple jobs, and one of them was at a retail place, and that's where I met my wife. When I was really young, I had a dream or I don't know, some sort of a feeling, I guess, that uh, you know, growing up in the truth, you're always kind of taught to either go into work or have lots of kids so they can go into work. And so I always kind of thought I was going to go into work, but if I wasn't, I had this feeling that I was going to marry somebody who wasn't part of the truth. And it was just, I remember that really, really young. And of course, it was way too early to get married when I had this dream. But anyways, so that's just a little background. But so working at the store, I met my wife. She didn't grow up going to meetings. She was raised in an E-free church, and so we started dating. And after 9 months, I guess, of dating, we got married. And in the meantime, she had started coming to meetings, and she professed at convention that summer. And so we got married, and I don't know, about 5 years after we were married, we started fostering kids. We got our first few, and then we got our first son, and he's just a little 5 pound something that we got from the hospital, and we fostered him for a little over a year, and then we were able to adopt him. Shortly after that, Merissa started questioning things with meaning at meeting, and we had our son, um, and he was not quiet. Um, he was actually, his biological mom did a lot of drugs, and he was going through withdrawals and stuff, and he was very colicky. And so that was, that was a disruption to meeting. But some of the things that people had talked to her, and some of the workers, things that she had said, she started to question. And not growing up in the truth, she didn't really know, um, what people believed, and different things like that. The processes that people that we go through with meeting and things like that. And so then one day I came home from work, and she started asking me these questions, and like, who is Jesus? Why is he important? Who is God? Different doctrinal things. How you're saved? How you get to heaven? And all these different questions. And then more specifically, she asked, well, why do you do the things you do? So why do you meet in a home, and why do the workers go out in pairs, and all these different questions. And I tried to answer them. I know I deflected a lot, but I remember that in high school, the workers had gone through a Bible study with us on why we believe what we believe, and different things like that. So I had this whole list of Bible verses. So I went and found that list, and pulled it out, and I started looking up the verses to answer her questions, and they didn't follow through. Not a single verse on that list actually meant what it was supposed to be backing up. If you just went to the beginning of that verse and put that verse in context with the chapter in the book, and everything, it didn't it didn't make sense. So that kind of got me frustrated, started getting me questioning some things, because here I thought I had it all figured out, and all the answers were there, and the Bible was on our side, because the Bible says that this is what we do. But things just started to kind of fall apart as far as trying to answer those questions. So that was kind of the start. And then, another big part of questioning, different things was, we were told not to listen to Christian music, because it was just worldly. People, they were just doing it for the money or the fame. And after a long time, I decided, hey, I'm just going to turn on the radio and just see what these songs are actually saying. And so I turned the radio on, and the song that was playing was called "Steal My Show," and it was a song talking about God getting the glory for the artist singing the song. And I was just like, that was the answer to what I thought was wrong. It wasn't just by chance that was the song that was playing when I turned the radio on that day. So we kind of went back and forth. My wife and I would go back and forth about, trying to, these questions and different things. I was still going to meetings. She had left going to meetings and started going back to the church that she grew up in. And so, Sundays we'd come home, and there's a lot of tension, and she'd try to ask me questions, and I'd just try not to answer her, because, I didn't have the answers, but I knew that there was something there where I didn't have the answers, and that was the problem. But anyways, so finally one night, it came to the point where, in my mind, and whether this is right or wrong, I don't know, but in my mind, I had to find out what the truth was. And I was thinking, So I either stopped going to meetings, and it had been so conditioned and ingrained in my brain that if I stopped going to meetings, I was going to go to hell. And so if I stopped going to meetings, and then I was going to go to hell. Or um, if I, get a divorce from my wife, which I didn't want to do, um, and then have the chance to go to heaven, but I know the Bible says don't get a divorce. So in my mind, I was very conflicted on, obviously eternity is more important than anything on this earth. And so I wanted to make sure that I knew I didn't make, you know, the biggest mistake of my life and go to hell. And so one night I came home from work, I was laying in bed, and I just decided I was going to pray and ask for the truth. I've prayed thousands of times before, but I was just probably mostly just muttering off things that I had heard other people say, things that I thought I should pray for. But this night was different. I prayed probably for the first time, for real, in my life. And I was laying in bed, looking up at the ceiling, and I just prayed for God to show me the truth. I just prayed that I said, I can't do this anymore. I need to know what the truth is. And I was prepared for either way, whether that was to get a divorce or whether that was to leave meetings. And, both would be horrible in my mind. Both would be life changing. I knew what would happen if I left meeting. You everybody thinks you're going to hell, and so and I didn't want to get divorced. I love my wife, and so, anyways, I prayed with that, with ready to let go of everything. Whatever that was, I didn't know what it was, but I was ready. And so I prayed, and I asked, what's the truth? And almost instantly, as if God was just waiting for me to ask that question, he said, well, so I was laying there in bed, and I saw this vision, and then this isn't anything mystical or whatever, but it was this diamond, this perfect diamond, and it was spinning, and there was light radiating out of it. And pretty soon I couldn't see the diamond anymore, but there's just this bright white light. It just got brighter and brighter and brighter. And I truly see that I saw a little bit of God's glory that day. And, nothing like Moses saw where he had to wear the veil, his face was shining, or anything like that. But I feel like I saw just a little tiny glimpse of just perfect white, just perfect, just bright white. And as I was seeing that, Jesus just simply said, and he didn't say anything specific to me. He didn't say, David, this is the answer, or anything like that. But he said a Bible verse. And it's a Bible verse that I'd read, hundreds of times before. That he said is John 14:6. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And it was just like, a light went on, literally. And I had read that verse dozens of times before, but I realized what it's saying, that Jesus is the way, nothing else. It's not your religion. It's not going to meetings. It's not going to meetings early so you can help set up chairs, going to preps, doing all these good works. It's nothing that gets you to heaven besides through Jesus. And Jesus is the only way. And so it's just like at that time, I just realized, wow, everything has just changed. Everything that I ever thought was real in reading the Bible had a completely new meaning. And when you realize that it's not going to meeting, it's not anything that you do that gets you to heaven or the path to heaven, But the narrow way isn't the truth, it's Jesus. And so when you read the Bible with those lenses on, it just opens up a whole new Bible and a whole new meaning to everything. And so after that, um, I started reading a lot, reading the Bible a lot. It took me a long time to come out of everything that I had been taught growing up. And yours went through some depression. Um, it wasn't just an easy path after that night. Um, but I ended up uh, stop stop going to meetings, and we ended up moving across the other side of the state. We'd go to grocery stores and we'd see people from meetings, and they would turn around and walk the other way. And at my grandma's funeral, people wouldn't shake our hands and things, and because why associate with somebody um, who isn't going to, be part of going to meetings anymore. And but anyways, so we moved across the state and got a fresh start. Found a good Bible believing church, and started to really learn and study. And I think the rest of that is probably for another video. Um, and we'll definitely share more in the future and hope to have more videos. Um, if you watch this and you didn't understand, some of the terms that I use as far as truth or meetings or different things like that, I will be making a video. If you didn't grow up going to meetings, I'll be making a video kind of explaining some of those terms and different things like that. But I hope that this was an encouragement to you. Um, I hope that you can. Um, if you get anything out of this, I hope you realize that it's Jesus is the answer, and it's not anything else, and it's just as simple as that. Um, but anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Love to talk to you and help you on your journey, no matter where you're at.